Alrighty. Today we are going to run through how to set up your payroll with Gusto and how to run your first payroll. So either you already have a Gusto account and you're just getting ready to do setup, or you are just interested in Gusto and you want to know how it all works. What I would recommend you doing if you don't currently have a Gusto account is to sign up for a free 30-day trial so that you can run through this process with us. And if you do, this is the screen that you'll see upon logging in for the first time. So Gusto just wants to kind of show you around and give you an overview of what you'll be doing when you play around in the system. We'll click through all of this so that we can get to the actual setup steps. So the first step is to add your company address. Okay, and just I want to point out on the left-hand menu, you'll see a list of all the steps that we're going to go through, and that's the order we'll follow. So let's click Add Company Addresses. So we're going to add an address, and as you'll see, Gusto tries to give you an idea of some of the places that the addresses that you might be referring to. So we're going to just select one for this tutorial, but in your case, you can enter your own. So you'll enter your address and then your phone number. Okay, we're going to click Continue Gusto Setup. And the next stage that it takes us to is to add your accountant or bookkeeper. Now, you may not need this option, and if that's the case, just skip this step. If you do, you'll simply go to Add Your Accountant, and you'll enter your accountant's name, first name, last name, email address, and phone number. Gusto will email your accountant credentials so that they can log into this account and create their own secured login. So be sure to enter the correct email address. So we're going to actually skip this step because we're not going to add anyone for the purposes of this tutorial, but I just wanted to show you guys that. The next step will be to add employees. Okay, so Gusto needs basic information about your employees so that it can get them set up and it can pay taxes accordingly. So here we're going to enter first and middle name, a last name, a start date, and I'm actually going to put this start date for later in this month, a work address, and so it will pull up an address that you entered before that you said your company is located at. So in the event that this employee does not work at any of the addresses that you've entered prior, you'll need to add a new location here. So, okay, and then you'll enter the email address that this employee can be contacted on. Gusto will actually email your employee. And in this case, the employee starts in the future. They have not started working yet. So Gusto will email a welcome letter along with W-4 information so that the employee can load everything needed to the system prior to the time they begin work. You'll also want to enter a job title. Okay, and you can create this as a job to be saved in the system in case, like for instance, if this were a restaurant, we have maybe 10 servers we're going to have. So if I create it just like I did, when I add the next employee who is also a server, this option will be here in the drop-down box, and I won't have to re-enter it. So then you select an employment type, and you can enter how much this employee is paid. So we're going to say $15 an hour. And then Gusto also has a box that you can select if the employee will receive additional types of compensation like commissions, bonuses, and things like that. And also you can put in a default number of hours per pay period. This just helps in case you have an employee that you know is probably going to work 20 hours every week. It's pretty consistent. Gusto will recommend this when you get ready to run payroll, so you don't actually have to enter it. You can just review it and unchange it as necessary. Okay, and then there's a time off policy link here. So if you have a policy where you're actually paying employees paid time off, then you'll need to set that policy here in Gusto. And Gusto will help you track it and also ensure that you pay employees accordingly when they do take their time off. So let's click Save and Continue to go to the next page. Okay, so we're still adding employees. Gusto is basically telling us the onboarding documents that we'll need. So the W-4, direct deposit authorization, employment eligibility form, which is I-9. So these are just HR docs that you need whenever you're hiring a new employee. And Gusto is basically letting us know that Jane will need to sign these documents during onboarding, okay? And so Gusto will handle all of that by sending it through the email, okay? Now, if you add an employee who has been with you for a while now, for instance, they were hired last year, Gusto will recognize that and will let you know that it's not gonna send the welcome email with all these documents because you should have them already, okay? So here we are. It still gives us an option to actually give them authorization whether or not to email Jane, the new employee, like a reminder and a welcome note. I think it's a good idea, but you can also personalize it here if you want. And then also it gives you an opportunity to preview the email. Click Save and Continue when you're done with that. Okay, so Gusto basically just sent the email, so inviting the new employee to onboard with the company. And so at this point, you're able to add another employee. If you're just signing up to Gusto and you have a few employees, you'll just continue to do this until you're done. And then when you're done, you'll come over to I've added all current employees. Okay, and that's when Gusto will send you to the next step, which is federal tax information. Okay, so now we need to add our federal tax information. And if you can see, I don't know if you've noticed before, but Gusto has a list of items that you need for each step. So in this case, which is very important, you'll need your employer ID. You'll need to know your legal business name, and then also the type of business that you have. So whether it's a partnership, LLC, sole proprietorship, because Gusto will ask all of these questions and they all have a bearing on your payroll taxes. So let's click Add Federal Tax Details, and it's going to take us to the setup screen. So here you'll need to put in your employer ID. Now, no, Gusto will figure out, like right here, this is just a mock employee ID. Gusto will figure that out. It's smart. So be sure that you enter the correct ID. You don't want to have a mix up with your taxes. If you have not yet applied for a federal employer ID, then Gusto gives you a link here where you can go to the IRS site and actually apply for one. So, okay. And here we'll select the company type. I'm going to say LLC. And then it pulls over the company name that I entered when initially signing up. And then there's also an option for you to assign the filing form that the IRS requires you to file. So it's either the 941 or 944. 941 is a quarterly form that you have to file to show the payroll taxes that you have collected and that you're paying in. And form 944 is an annual form. You don't get to choose which form you want. Actually, the IRS assigns it, so you'll need to make sure you have that information. Okay, so as you can see, Gusto can tell in real time whether or not the federal employer ID number is correct. And if it can't verify it, it won't let you, won't ultimately be able to run payroll. So that's just a good system that it has to keep you from running into any issues later. We're going to save here and go on, let's see if we can go on to our next step. Okay. The next step is to add state tax details. So here it says Florida because I entered a Florida address for this business. Okay. So for you, it'll be whatever state you live in. And then, so you'll need to really pay attention here when it gets to your state, because this is where it can differ for everybody on what you need to have ready. When you're ready, click Add Your State Tax Details. So you'll need to know your unemployment tax rate. And then like for Florida, so it just has unemployment tax rate and reemployment account number. Okay, so you should receive when you sign up for your business, and you should have a document that actually has this information on it. And the good thing about Gusto is that there are links for every state. So here, get started, find your Florida tax account information, and also register your company in Florida. So Gusto has links to help customers do that if they have not done it already. So you'll see that for your state as well. Okay. So, and then I also want to point out that if this were another state, let's just say Arkansas, where there is an income tax, you'd see another box here where it would ask for your withholding account number and possibly some more information. So this page will differ depending on what state you are in. So let's continue the Gusto setup. Okay. And then at this point, this is where you'll need to add your bank account. This is important. Let's click add bank account. You'll need your routing number and account number, but this is important because Gusto will need to connect to your bank account in order to confirm that it will be able to pull the money out of your account on the pay date and deposit it to your employees. So here you'll enter whatever information you need. Okay, and then as you'll see, Gusto, again, it can verify a lot of this data in real time. So I entered a routing number. It already knows that is a Regions bank account that we're going to be entering. So I'm just going to enter a mock account number. Okay, so this is not going to work, but that is a mock account number. You'd enter your account number, and then also you'd have to allow at least 2 business days for bank verification to process. So don't try to pay someone the next day after you do this setup, because it may not work. So you'll need to acknowledge that. Gusto has a box that you'll need to check before you can continue. So we'll click continue. As you can see, Gusto knows this account number is incorrect. Okay, so let's get you verified. Gusto wants to verify your bank account. You can do it manually. If I click verify bank account here, it will take me to an online bank account, my online bank account. So it'll take me to Regions Bank, where you would need to log into your online banking account, and that would verify your account instantly. If you don't have online banking or just are not comfortable using this secured site, then you can do it manually. And basically, Gusto will deposit 2 small amounts, could be a penny or in three pennies, into your account, and then you'll need to check back within a day or 2 and enter those amounts into the system so Gusto can verify that this is indeed an account that you have access to. Okay, so once you're done with that, you'll click continue Gusto setup. All right, and then it takes you down to step 7, which is the pay schedule. So let's add our pay schedule. Tell Gusto how often you want to pay your employees. We'll say weekly, the day of the week. You have an option. And then when the first day will be, or first pay date. Okay, so Gusto tells you the deadline that you'll have. So it's 2 days before you have to run payroll, at least 2 days before you want it to be deposited. And then you can select the week for which you want the employees to be paid. Some people pay in arrears. So basically that's like a week behind, 1 to 2 weeks behind. And some actually pay for the current week. So if you're paying on the 24th and you're paying from 7/18 for the work performed from 7/18 to 7/24, that will be on a current pay schedule. So let's continue Gusto setup. Okay, and so we're now at the point where we need to sign documents. Okay, that is basically just to give Gusto authorization to be your payroll provider and run payroll on your behalf. So you'll click sign documents, and Gusto wants you to verify that you are the signatory. You're authorized to sign forms for this company. So you'll select yes, and then you'll need to come down and put in your information. Okay, and then also your title. We'll just say owner, and then you'll need to put in social security number, a birth date, all this wonderful identifying information, and then a phone number. Okay, and then also a home address. Again, Gusto pulls up all the addresses that it thinks could be yours, and you just need to put in your zip. Okay, so once you've entered all of your signatory information, you'll be ready to sign the documents. So Gusto has direct deposit authorization form and form 8655, which basically authorizes Gusto to pay and file federal taxes on your behalf. You'll need to sign both of those forms just once. Okay, so you'll basically just type your name and then click the box beside I agree to electronically sign this form. And then form 8655 will be the exact same way. Okay. All right. And again, you should only have to do this once when you're setting up your account, and then you can continue Gusto setup. Now, as you will see, it will come back and tell us to verify our bank account, okay, because it didn't get done automatically back on step 6. So it wants us to do it now, and we're not going to be able to do it. So we're going to skip that for purposes of this tutorial, but in your case, you would be able to do this. You'll be able to come back to this if you had chosen to manually verify your bank account. Then this would be the place where you would be able to go back and enter those amounts, okay, once you've entered your bank account information. So we're actually going to skip to step 10. Select the industry. Gusto does need your industry information just to comply with some finance regulations. So if you have your NICS code for your business, that's great. If not, Gusto will try to help you find it. So here we'll just type in restaurant, and Gusto has a list. There's different types of restaurants. So we'll just put limited service restaurants. And if you can't find your industry, Gusto will, if you click the box beside that, you'll be able to just describe it in your own words, and Gusto will accept that as well. Okay. Continue Gusto setup after that. As you can see, Gusto really wants us to verify this bank account. So it's going to continue to try to take us to the screen, but we're also going to skip it again for purposes of this tutorial and go to workers' comp, which is step 11. And here, Gusto will let you know if your state requires you to have workers' compensation. So here it tells us Florida doesn't require workers' compensation for our company, but we should consider setting it up. If you're in a state where it does require it, Gusto will let you know, whether that's for your industry or just for businesses, period. So Gusto has a partnership with AP Intego, and for you to be able to purchase workers' compensation insurance. So if you do need to purchase it, Gusto will help you get access to different plans. You can select that here, and it'll take you there. If you already have access, you can just say yes, we're covered. Enter your information like your carrier name and your renewal date, and then you can continue. You can also select I'll do it later if you want to skip this altogether, okay? But just so you can see, it will show you where you can actually get workers' comp insurance through Gusto or just manage it yourself. Okay, and last but not least, let's go to choosing the right plan for you. Okay, this will only apply if you are using a trial. Okay, if you've already signed up for Gusto and you have an account, you've already chosen the right plan for you. So I just want to show you guys, Gusto has 3 plans. So you have the concierge, complete, and core. The recommended plan, Gusto normally recommends a plan depending on the initial questions you answer at the beginning of your trial about the things that you need. And so that's why it recommended the concierge for us. Okay, but it tells you a list of the features so you can see the differences. You would choose which one you want, and you don't have to put any payment information in. It's just so that I think it makes the transition smoother once your free trial is up. So we'll select plan, and Gusto will have you choose whether or not you want to do a 2-day direct deposit, 4-day direct deposit. That basically just tells the number of days in between when you need to run payroll and when the money will actually be deposited into your employee's bank account. Next day direct deposit, although is ideal, is not available to new employers. You may be able to get a pass if you're able to call and speak to your rep. Normally they like to see that you've run a couple of payrolls and everything's worked out fine before they will give you access to that. But that's something you'd have to handle on an actual phone call. You wouldn't be able to set that up initially through a free trial or anything of that nature. So click Save and Continue when you're done with that, and you're really done. So this is telling me to continue setup because we still need to verify our bank account. So just make sure that's done. It's very important. Okay, so now that your payroll is set up, let's talk about how exactly you need to run your first payroll. Okay, so this is basically the home screen, and you'll see on your left-hand menu, you'll see a button for you to run payroll. So let's select that. Okay, you'll be able to run your regular payroll. So now that we can select run regular payroll. They have other options as well if you need to do like an off-cycle payroll. For instance, if you have an employee for whatever reason who didn't get their paycheck last week, something went wrong, or if they have a bonus that needs to be paid out and it's off the regular payroll cycle, you can do that here. And then, well, they have a bonus payroll. So missing payroll, off-cycle payroll, it just depends on the situation. So we're actually just going to go through how to run a regular payroll, okay? Gusto gives you information on when you need to run your payroll in order for your employees to get paid. So here, like it tells us, we need to run it by 7 p.m. Eastern time on July 22nd if we want our employees to receive it by payday, Friday, July 24th. So we're going to click Run Regular Payroll. Okay. And what Gusto does is it pulls up all the employees that we're paying and how much they're being paid, how many hours that they've worked. And so a lot of this will, like for instance, this person who has 80 hours, this will populate for the default amount because we entered this upon setup, right? So I don't know if you remember, but when we initially set up the employee, we had the option of entering the average weekly hours that they worked. And so Gusto can put this up and we don't have to make any changes. Obviously, if an employee's work hours vary, you'll need to go in, you'll click the pencil beside it, and you can edit that at any time. These are just the regular hours. If you need to add a bonus, commission, other earnings, reimbursement, you can do that here as well. Okay, so this is what this screen is for you to review their earnings and update them per the time cards or whatever it is that you have. Okay, some of these people, as you see, earn salary. Some actually work hourly. And so you'll need to account for all that. Now we're going to click Save and Continue. What Gusto is going to do is show us, take us to a time off page. So obviously, if you didn't sign up for a time off policy and enter that in the system during setup, this won't really apply, right? But if you do have a paid time off policy and you're paying some employees PTO and they took PTO during this time, you'll need to enter that here. Let's say this guy took 5 hours. Gusto will pay that employee for those hours and also update how many hours he has remaining. So this is just a handy tool. Click Save and Continue once you're done. Okay. Now you're really ready to submit your payroll. This is basically the last review that you'll be able to do before you actually do the final submission. So you'll slide down and you'll be able to see who gets paid what and what taxes that they owe, along with the company benefits that they're receiving. You'll also look at the total company payroll. So here it's 31,000. As you run a few payrolls, you'll become more comfortable with these numbers, and it'll be easy for you to perform reasonableness checks. Okay, so you'll see the amount that's going to be coming out of your account, only 28,000, although the total payroll is 31,000. You'll end up having to pay taxes to the government for this total amount, and then you'll have your benefits that you're paying out will need to go to whatever vendors are applicable there. Okay, once you're certain that this is exactly what it should be, then you can click Submit Payroll. Okay, and voila, you did it. So basically, you'll see a summary of your payroll, and it'll basically tell you the amount of direct deposits you got, and that you're paying out, all of the taxes and things that are being paid, and you're done. Okay, So you'll be able to print out a report of like your cash requirements and a full summary of your payroll if you want, just to do a review or to save for documentation. You can also just maintain it online. But regardless, you just ran your first payroll.